That's the beauty of what we do, guys. For all those listening who are like, "Oh my god, what you guys do sounds so risky." It's like, "No, no, no. What we take on is this asymmetrical risk return profile." Okay? What that means in English is that when things go right, we win big, and when things go not so right, we still.
Welcome back to the Investing RN podcast. We're joined today by Hoan Thai, Mr. Hoan Zone. Josh and I met him at an event in Tahoe. I guess that was last year. He was a wild man. Never skied. He was like flying down the mountain, holding a
That's right.
GoPro, no poles, just a GoPro camera, just flying down the mountain, out of control. And we were like, "Who is this guy? We got to talk to him." So we rode a chairlift up with him and had an awesome conversation about syndications and all kinds of real estate stuff. One thing led to another. We were just kind of stayed in touch, and now here we are interviewing Hoan today. Welcome to the show.
Here we are, and I am so happy to be on this show. And I'm sorry about last week when I missed the appointment. I had guests over and all kinds of stuff, and then life happened for us, right, Josh? Right? It happened for us,
That's right.
Josh. Actually, so little backstory: I missed our first appointment to be on this podcast, and then Josh texted me later, and he said, "Hone, thank you for missing the podcast." Josh, why? Why? What happened?
So my youngest daughter, she's in ballet lessons, and we don't get to sit in on the class very often. They just let us know like a couple days, maybe a week in advance. And this was one of those days where I could sit in on the class, and I enjoyed it. It was really fun.
There you go. And that's why we do what we do, right? So that we can be a part of our kids' lives. That's it, right? What else is there?
So thanks for missing. Just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, yeah. So for everybody listening who's trying to build a business and who's trying to like force something to happen, it's like I gotta get rich and I gotta get rich now. It's like life is happening for you. Maybe now is not the time. If it's not working out for you, you can always create a story that serves you. And so if it's not working out for you, create the story that says it's not working for me because now is not the time. It's like I know if I were 20 years old and as successful as I am today, but 20 years old, I would probably be in rehab right now or something. Like my life would be probably in shambles. But the fact that I got my wealth when I did, I think was the appropriate time. Even though I wanted it back then when I was 20, I didn't get it then. I got it now and I'm more mature to be able to handle it. So again, life happens for you, not to you.
What were you doing when you were 20 years old?
Well, 20, I was in college still going for my engineering degree, graduated mechanical engineering degree, got a job in corporate America right after school. And I think I graduated at like 21, 22, something like that. And then got my degree in mechanical engineering, worked as an engineer. And then I was like, I am bored out of my mind. Are you serious? This is what people do for 30 years or whatever. It's like, this can't be it. But there was no roadmap. There wasn't anybody like mentoring me or showing me a different way. And it was just like, okay, what do I do now? Oh, I know. Let's go back to school. And I got my master's degree. So I got my master's degree in financial engineering. I was like, okay, this is what people are supposed to do, right? Here's what happened. I got my master's degree. I still had the same job. It was like, okay, so nothing changed. Nothing at all changed. And I was just like, God, there's got to be something different. So I was like, it's got to be like a business. So I started all kinds of stuff, man. I like created like a juice bar, an IT company. I didn't know what IT was. I started an IT company. I remember I got my first client. I was sitting in the DMV renewing my license. Woman sitting next to me was like, "Oh, so what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I have an IT company." She's like, "Oh, we got to talk. Here's my card." I contact her, sold her on stuff. I had no idea what I even sold her on. Right. And then I had to go find somebody to go implement the thing that I sold. To this day, I still don't know what we did. Right. And then, so that's how I got a client for IT company, created a juice bar because I was at like this business plan competition. And then this girl that was there, she was like, "Oh yeah, I have this idea," and I was like, "Okay, I got some money." And then we put it together and we created a juice bar. Sucked, like just tried all kinds of stuff, and then eventually read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then became a real estate investor. And the rest is history. Here I am. So I started that real estate investing desire, and like when I was 26 years old, and bought my first investment property at 28.
This episode is sponsored by All Day Investments. If you would like to get your start in real estate investing, but don't want to deal with toilets or tenants, we have several new opportunities that might interest you. Head over to alldayinvestments.co/invest or follow the link in our show notes to book a call with our team.
So everybody always talks about Rich Dad Poor Dad, and like I think most people know what Rich Dad Poor Dad is, but what was it like specifically that like triggered it for you, where it was just like, oh, this makes sense. This is what I'm going to do.
I didn't I think it was the concept of an asset, like asset versus liability, and then having assets pay for liabilities. I didn't realize in that context the way he simplified it. Now, if you're filling out your personal financial statement, you put all kinds of things on your asset line that aren't assets per the book, but per the book says that an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. And if you just simply go by that, like as simple as that is, that's great. And if you were to wrap up the whole book in one sentence, it's buy more assets. That's it, right? Or acquire more assets. You don't necessarily you have to buy them. You can use all kinds of techniques to acquire the assets without using your own money. But acquire more assets was it. And I was just like, oh, so that's where like this whole idea of passive income and creating wealth and all that kind of stuff. Like I that's where I really understood it. Because before that, all I could think about was create a business that's great that creates cash. Not I was going to say cash flow, but not even because it's just all transactional. I have a juice bar. I sell you a juice. It's like transaction, right? That's not cash flow. That's just cash. I just made some cash. But this whole concept of acquire an asset that produces cash flow that you get without having to work was like, that's it. That is it. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so now it's just let's build and acquire more of these assets that produce passive income so that I can not have to work and get all my liabilities paid for. So it's not about like skimping and not having any liabilities. No, I still buy a lot of stuff. It's just now I don't have to work for that stuff. I work to build the assets and then the assets pay for all the stuff. So that's Rich
That's
Dad.
rich, dad. So you're still working as an engineer while you bought your first property, I assume. What did that transition look like for you? Because I'm sure it was like a whole lot more work, and I don't know if you were married at the time, but my wife is always telling me like, "You're working really hard right now. I'm not seeing a whole lot of the money." But so talk about that that transition for you and what it took, and how many properties it took for you to finally
um,
leave the job that you didn't like.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a very crazy story. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad because of the girl that I wanted to date was reading that book. And so, you know, when you're like trying to court the person, it's like,
Happy
oh,
for you.
it's like, what are you reading and whatever, right? And she was like, oh, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so I was like, oh, I think I have that book. I went home. I didn't have that book. I actually had like the cash flow quadrant, right? I didn't have Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, oh shit, now I'm a liar. So I went out and I bought the book. So I went out and I bought the book and I read it real fast, and that's how I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Right? And so then, from reading that book, I was just like, "Okay, I am committed to becoming a real estate investor." And it took me 2 years before I bought my first 6 unit apartment building, which was my first investment property. And then I was doing that while at work, like you said, Josh. And what's crazy is I had given up on work. I was just like, I'm not doing anything anymore. And so I just didn't. I just studied and studied and studied at work, working on my own business, creating spreadsheets, analyzing deals, and all that kind of stuff. I stopped doing work. My boss at the time, he would come over, he'd look at my desk, right? There's like the inbox at my desk, and he would look and be like, "Oh, your work's really piling up, Owen. Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Oh, dude, it's just so much work, man. It's just so much work. Can I get an intern?" He was like, "You know what? I think we can arrange that." So then he we started interviewing interns, and I got one. And I was like, "Oh, sweet." So I got this intern, and I taught him how to do my work, and that's all he would do, 8 hours a day, just do the work that was backed up, and he did that for, like, 4 weeks, and he got through the pile. Like, it was like, "Okay, dude, I'm done." So then I started having him do my books. Like, I had him go through, like, my bank statements and label everything, and he was just doing work for me now. And what's great is I look like an all-star because all my work was done, and it was all done on time now, and he did all of it, and most of the time, it was just me and my intern working on my real estate, like, stuff. And so yeah, I did my first deal while at work and with intern in hand, in tow, right? And then eventually he left, and then I went back to still not doing work, and then eventually I got let go from my job. But luckily for me, I had the skills of how to be an investor, right? And so I just continued to do what I was doing. So whether I was ready or not, on one hand, I had the income from a 6 unit apartment complex. On the other hand, though, I got unemployment. Right? So I got unemployment. I got the 6 unit apartment, but most importantly, I had the skills to build whatever it is that I wanted and needed. And not only skills, but like the confidence. If there was the most important skill out of all of it, I think confidence is a skill that people need to develop. So I'm wearing my shirt. It says go far. FAR is an acronym: fire, aim, ready. A lot of people go ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim, but they never fire. So I put fire first. Once you fire, now you have to deal with it. My first deal, my sixth unit, right? I was nervous. I was scared. The way I found it was my mentor at the time. I found a mentor by accident, and he was like, "Oh, I'm having a course." I'm like, "I'm in." So I paid whatever I paid. It didn't matter what number he said, I was going to pay it, right? Because I was just so hungry to become a real estate investor. I joined his program. He becomes my mentor, and then he has this 6 unit apartment building, and he's like, "Hone, do you want to buy this?" And I said, "No." And then I think he forgot that he even asked me. Like then a week or a month later or whatever, he asked me again, "Hone, do you want to buy the 6 unit?" I was like, "Okay, let me analyze it." And so I analyzed it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a good deal all the way around." I try to kill it a million times with math, right? I would like, what happens if the budget goes too high? What if the ARV is too low? What if my rents are too low? Whatever. And the deal just would not die. So I was like, the only reason why I would not do this deal is because I was scared. So I had to learn this concept of go far. I had to fire first, which means I was like, yo, can you find me the money? He was like, yeah. So he found me a hard money lender. And I remember right before signing, I was like, Hone, sign that line so that you can't turn back. So it's like modern day is like burn your boats, whatever. I didn't know that concept of burn your boats. I said to myself, I got to sign that line so I can't back out. So I signed the line, and now I'm personally guaranteed, and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line to do this deal. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And so that confidence, that skill of confidence, what I learned of firing, like that has led me my whole entire life now. And so even to this day, I'm like taking shots at things that I have no business taking shots at, but it has gotten me really far in life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think we've kind of gone about our business in that same way, and it's like at times it's scary because I feel like we're just doing a lot of catching up. But we were talking to a guy actually last week, like right before you're supposed to come on, and it was like I was the only reason I was like disappointed is because he was teeing it up perfect for your decide and choose, because he said there was like a, I forget who it was,
Oh
but a
yeah.
billionaire was questioned, like, if you could say one word like to your family to like change their life or whatever, what would that one word be? And it was decision. And I remember from when we were in the mastermind with you, it was like you had the decide and choose thing. So can you talk about that and like how that applies to what
Yeah.
you're doing?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So people intermix decide and choose as if they're the same word. It's like, hey, uh vanilla or chocolate, decide, or vanilla chocolate, choose, right? And so people mix those up as if they're the same word, but they're not. So decide is where you're going to pick one and kill off the other, essentially, right? Vanilla, I pick vanilla because I like the vanilla flavor. And if you decide that, you have killed off the chocolate decision. Okay. So then people think, oh, choosing is the same thing. If I choose vanilla, then I'm killing off chocolate. But really, you're choosing by choosing vanilla, by picking vanilla, what you're saying is you pick vanilla regardless of everything else. The weather is a perfect example. And this is how I get people to understand the difference. You do not decide the weather, but you can choose the weather. As in, if it's raining outside, you don't decide whether it rains or not. I mean, I guess you can fly to like California and be like, no rain, see? But outside of that, it's like if it's raining outside, you're not deciding whether it's raining or not. But you can choose the rain. As in you could go, I'm happy that it's raining. I take it for what it is. It's watering the world. It's like cleaning the air. It's doing all of this stuff. And so you're choosing it as in you're accepting it for all that it is and all that it isn't. No, it is not a sunny day, but you are choosing it still. You're accepting it for who it is. So like your mom, choose, right? It's like some people don't choose their mom. They hate their mom for whatever it is. Like, oh, my mom is always nagging me, or my mom is this, my mom is that. And then other people are like, I love my mom. She has some flaws. She has some drawbacks. She comes up short in this, and this. But I choose my mom every time, no matter what, right? And so it's a powerful thing. So where this comes in handy is sometimes we're doing something like, let's say some of your audience members are nurses, right? And so they're in this job and they hate it every single day, and it's like they're hating it because they're not choosing it. Yes, nursing is not real estate investing. It does not make as much. It does not produce wealth. It has cash. It pays you a salary, whatever, but it doesn't create wealth. But you got to choose it for what it is, because you also don't deal with tenants. You also don't deal with toilets and roofs and this and that and whatever, right? As a nurse, you don't have an eviction, right? And so choose it for what it is, accept it for what it is. And now, if you want to create something else, whether it's like a mobile home park or something, like you want to own that, that's fine. And you can decide on mobile home parks and cut off single family and cut off multifamily and cut off self storage, and you can decide on mobile home parks, right? But wherever you are, try to choose that. Be present with where you are, accept it for what it is and what it is not. That I think is the most important lesson, that nothing will meet your like everything. So you have to choose it for even what it's not,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's going to fail you somehow, some way. Not everybody is perfect, but you still choose them to be your friends. You still choose them to be your podcast host, no matter what flaws they have, right? You like that? You like that, right? So by choosing them, it just allows you to live in peace within yourself. So decide, cut off, pick whatever. Choosing is accepting for what it is, what it is.
Yeah.
And so when you chose to buy that 6 unit, what did that do for you? Can you go through the numbers? And because I mean, this was, I don't know how long ago this was, like 15 years
2011,
ago?
so 13 years
Oh,
ago.
okay.
Yeah.
Real estate's changed quite a bit since then. So talk about that deal right there, and then talk about how somebody can find that deal today.
Yeah, so I rode a dinosaur to go walk through the property, right? Because it was that long ago. Yeah, no, it's funny, I bought it for $38,000,
Wow.
okay? So I bought it for $38,000, and at the time, it took, like, $120,000 or so in rehab. Forget exactly, right? So that's 160 right there, and then I used hard money to buy it and renovate it, and then when it was all said and done, I think the ARV was 285, 300, something like that. And so when you do a cash out refi, so I was doing Burrs back then before Burr had a name of buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So that was a textbook Burr, and I did it. Got all the money back, paid back the hard money lender. And at the time, there was a lot of deals, but no money, and so any hard money lender out there was charging a ton. So I paid 16% interest on the money, and I paid 6 points to the lender. And then I paid my mentor at the time. He brokered the deal. And so I paid him 2 points. So really, it's 8 points and 16% interest for the hard money, if you think about it.
Oh my
But
goodness.
like I said, I bought it for like 40,000 and then put in like 120, and I was still able to refinance it and get all or most of my money out. And then I had the 6 units pumping. And I think at the time it was producing like 36 or 4,000, something like that, right? Out of the 6 units. So it was easily covering the mortgage payments every single month. I think the interest rate then was like 5.75 or whatever when I refinanced, and I used a credit union. And then, yeah, that was that. So how I found it was through the mentor. And like today, I mean, numbers are different, sure, right? But there are still deals to be had, and not everything needs to be a cash flow play. And sometimes you got to look at the deal case by case. And so if a deal comes your way and it like maybe doesn't cash flow, it could be a huge equity play. So then you could um buy the property, renovate it, and then flip it essentially. Or if it's like a multifamily, you can buy, renovate it, hold it for a little while, and then aim to sell it in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, depending on the size. So like if you're talking 100 unit apartment building, like the business plan is to sell it in 7 to 10 years usually. So that's in the business model. So it doesn't always have to like cash flow like crazy, because the there might be a buyer for it for some reason, like a 1031 exchange kind of deal, or somebody who just doesn't know about real estate and they don't know how to get like a slamming deal. They'll be willing to buy your not so great deal because they're all cash and they can make it cash flow. So they might not get a mortgage, so they don't have a debt service to cover. And so like deals work for some people that don't work for you, and vice versa. So just take a look at your exit strategies or whatever, and choose accordingly. So
No, that's definitely good. I mean, you mentioned having your intern and yourself just running numbers all the time, but a lot of people get scared to get their first deal, let alone jumping straight into a 6 unit. So, what was it, and what were you doing that gave you the confidence to tackle that? That you knew, this thing, because you said you couldn't make it fail with the math. So, what were you doing,
right.
and how did you kind of, I guess, go about learning that?
Yeah. So I paid for the course from my mentor. Like I said, he was like, "Hey, I got a course," and I was like, "I'm in." And like I just paid whatever I paid for the course at the time. I don't even remember what it cost, right? But I just paid, and there is where I learned how to do the math. So anybody listening who's like a nurse, I know a lot of you, like your audiences are nurses, like they don't know the math, and it's because nobody taught them the math. Because this kind of math is not taught in school, right? I have my master's in financial engineering, and I was not taught the math on how to do this deal, right? But here's what's cool. All you need is third grade math. So if you've passed third grade, you're good. You're good in the math department. The math that I ran was simply this: if my ARV, my after repair value, the value of the property once it's all fixed up, if that is a certain number, let's say it was like, I don't know, $400,000, I know that when I go to the bank to refinance, they will only give me 75% of that. So 75% of 400 is 300, right? And so as long as I'm all in for 300 or less, I get all my money back, right? And so one of the fears that I had was, if the ARV didn't come in at the 400, right? This is a whole different example, but if an ARV doesn't come in at 400, does the deal break? And it's like, well, what would it come in at? And so I would do the math of 390, 380, 370, 360, right? And I would just keep on doing the math. And it's not like you got to do each line. You just type it into Excel and drag the thing. And then you can see all the refinance amounts. Like, it's so easy once somebody shows you, right? And so I'm looking at all the refinance amounts and I'm like, okay, as long as I'm like, the deal causes me to come out of pocket if the ARV is 20% less than what I thought it would be. So then you got to ask yourself, what's the probability of it coming in 20% less? And it's like, you're doing all these kind of things. You can calculate as much as you want. And after you think you thought of everything, the thing that's left over is risk. So I'm just doing everything that I can in terms of calculations of, like, if the ARV does not come in where I need it to come in, then my refinance is going to be here. And if my refinance is here, then I'm going to have this much money in the deal, or I only cash out this much money, or whatever, right? So there's like, if it comes in at the maximum amount, I cash out 50,000. But if it comes in at this amount, I break even. And if it comes in at this lower amount, then I have some money stuck in the deal. Having some money stuck in the deal doesn't mean the deal is dead. It just means you have money stuck in the deal. And when you have money stuck in the deal, now you're doing a cash on cash return equation, right? You're like, okay, I have this much money stuck in the deal, but how much am I cash flowing? And then you look at that number and you go, oh, well, that's still a high rate of return. So I'm good, right? You guys see? So that was the ARV way of like erasing my fear. Next fear was rehab goes over too much. So there's like a whole list of things that needed to get done to the project. I just reviewed it over and over and over. I looked at that list of like, did I miss anything? Am I adding enough contingency? Is there something that like could go wrong, right? And I'm like adding more contingencies, and I go, if the budget goes over by this much, I don't cash out enough, right? Or if the budget goes up this much, I cash out this much. If it only goes up this much, then I cash out this much. If it goes over way, then like I leave some money in, right? And it keeps on going back to that. And then the final one was rents. The rent was like, if I can get this much per unit or whatever, then my rent would be this. And then so my debt service coverage ratio to cover the loan would be 1.6 or 1.4 or 1.3, right? And I just kept doing it. And it's like I couldn't kill the deal, because in order for the deal to not work, I had to be so wrong that the probability of me being that wrong was just like unheard of. So again, I just kept doing it, and you can do it on Excel, no problem, super easy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, if I don't do this deal, it's only because I'm a little punk, right? Not because it's a bad deal. It's because I'm a punk. So I had to fire. So people hear that story, right? So people hear that I bought a 6 unit apartment building, but they typically don't hear of all of the analysis that I did in terms of trying to kill the deal, stress testing it, if you want to be more professional, right? Stress testing the deal. Like, people think I'm fearless. No, no, no. I'm full of fear, just like the rest of you guys, right? We're all scared, but with math, I get to fear less, if you will, right? I get to fear less. I'm not fearless, right? I get to fear less because I've realized that the things that I should be scared of aren't that scary, because I've uncovered it. I shine the light on it with Excel, with math. And that's how I got over it. because those are the only things that could really break the deal, right? What's the ARV? What's the rehab? What's the rents? Ta-da!
Yeah.
Everything else I have under control. I know what my finance costs are going to be. I know what my purchase price is going to be. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's how you get rid of fear with math. For all of my Asian listeners, this should like be like, yeah, math, let's go.
But with the math thing, I mean, it's so good because it's like that was kind of our rationale for our first deal was like, okay, like we're trying to do the same burst at strategy. And like we ran our numbers and we're like, okay, in a perfect world, we'll get all our money back. Well, we ended up getting an additional couple grand back on top of that. So that's like, knocked out of the park, whatever. But like worst case scenario, let's say we'd only gotten 80% of our money back. Well, now we got 20% in the deal and it's just like a conventional loan, like anything else. So it's like, it's still like you said, then it goes to the cash on cash return and it's like it's still a win. It's still you're still good.
Yeah, yeah, that's the beauty of what we do, guys. For all those listening who are like, "Oh my god, what you guys do sounds so risky." It's like, "No, no, no. What we take on is this asymmetrical risk return profile." Okay? What that means in English is that when things go right, we win big, and when things go not so right, we still win.
Yeah.
It's an amazing game that we play. It's like we win or we win a little less. So that doesn't sound risky to me.
Yeah.
There's so much analysis that goes on behind the scenes that maybe your listeners are unaware of, but once they learn literally like what we do step by step, they go, "Oh, I see." So all of the unfounded fears that I have like bouncing around in my head will go away because it's just noise because they're not actually looking at anything. They just think risky versus risk,
Mm.
right? When you think risky, that's emotional. That's emotional. You're like, oh, I'm scared. When you say risk, that's a math equation. That is something that you can account for and you can mitigate. Risky, you cannot account for, you cannot mitigate because you don't know what it is because it's an emotion. Risk is just numbers. So there you go. We play the game of risk. Most people play the game of risky. Two totally different things.
Yeah. And even if you're like, obviously we can't all get an intern like you did that just, keeps us that just keeps us afloat at work. But like for nurses, it's like, if you're working a 3-day a week schedule or like a per diem thing, you can do this on the side and mitigate that risk by keeping your full-time job and continue to make that money and then just build it until you get to a point where you can walk away from that if you want. So,
Yeah, look, everybody goes like, "Oh, home, can you tell me about your journey?" And then they might say something like, "Oh, I can't do that." Well, you're not going to do that even if you could. Like what I did and what everybody else is going to do is going to be completely different. Like you guys are in the business, but you guys didn't follow my model. And like Josh, you didn't follow Colin's model. Colin, you didn't follow Josh's model. And like everybody has a unique journey. Everybody's thing's going to be different. Also, the property that I bought, they will not buy because they can't buy it because I bought it. Right. And so nobody will have the exact same journey. You might buy something similar. Like somebody might follow you guys and be like, "Oh, guys, I bought a mobile home park." Cool. But they didn't buy the mobile home park you bought. And even if they did buy the mobile home park that you bought because you sold it and they bought it from the next buyer or whatever, they didn't buy it at the same price and they didn't buy it at the same date. And it didn't have the same rehab and it didn't have the same tenants. And so it's still a whole different journey.
yeah.
Everybody's going to have a unique journey. You just have to figure it out. And just because you couldn't do what I'm doing with the whole intern thing, if you're stuck on that, you're going to be stuck. Period. You're going to be stuck at where you are and we can't help that. You just have to take a look at like what was like the philosophy behind it all? What was the mindset behind it all? The mindset for me was like, I'm tired of this. It was almost like to the point where I didn't care. I didn't care. When a person has nothing to lose because they don't care anymore, they're a dangerous person. I didn't care whether I lost my job or not. I was just like, dude, I'm not here. I am not here. I'm physically here to get my paycheck, but I'm not here. I'm doing what I'm doing. And if things go sideways, so be it. Right? I'm not going to be stuck to any situation if I don't want to be here. So, yeah, like when your back's against the wall and you can force your back to be against the wall. Nobody told me to do anything, right? Like they didn't tell me I was going to like lose my job. I just felt like one day I would. One day the possibility of losing my job was always there. What if like another COVID happens and whatever your job is, like nursing got more popular during COVID, but like maybe you don't want to be. Maybe you don't want to be a nurse during a pandemic, huh? Maybe that. So like what then? right? Maybe you have a family to go home to and you don't want to go to the hospital where there's people with this sickness that nobody knows about that could infect you, which then you can infect your family and kill your whole family. Now, we all thought that was going to happen in March of 2020. You know, different things happened, but like, what if, right? So I always pictured in my mind that there was going to be this like catastrophic thing. I would get my job cut off. I would lose that, whatever, and I'd have to figure it out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take matters into my own hands and figure it out now. For you guys, for the nurses, something like that could happen to you. I don't know what, but like you don't want to figure it out later when it happens. So there's a saying I like: stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. Right? Stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. And what I mean by that is the skill set. Have the skill sets to be an investor. Talk to private lenders and private investors so that you have the resources financially to do a deal if it came your way. Like, don't scramble when the thing happens. Do it now while things are normal, right? It's like when you go to a bank. If you need money, you're less likely to get it. But when you don't need money and you have a lot of money, they will willingly give you a lot of money. It's like, oh, Josh, Colin, you guys have $1 million in the bank and you guys would like to borrow money from us? No problem. Here you go, guys with $1 million. But if you guys had no money and bad credit and you really needed money, the banks would say no. So what do you got to do? You got to borrow the money when you don't need it. You got to have the skill sets before you need it, right? Stay ready so you ain't got to get ready.
There you go. Lit a fire underneath Hoan, that's for sure.
You actually in your fit of rage there, you mentioned you mentioned private money. And that's something actually, like, for us, we're starting to get into, and raising private money. So that's like a big holdup for a lot of people, is like, oh, well, I don't have the money to invest. But it's like you said, like, get ready, and then, like, now all of a sudden this money comes along. So how has that worked for you? Because I know you've raised a lot of private money.
I have my own coaching program, and in my coaching program, I have a wide variety of students. Some students have a lot of money. They're just like, they want to learn how to invest. They have the money, but they don't have the skill sets to invest. So they're like, Hone, I found a deal. I'm like, okay, cool. How are you going to finance it? They're like, oh, I got the cash. I'm like, okay, cool. I want you to raise the money anyway. And they're like, why? I got the cash. I'm like, because when you do a bigger deal, you might not have the cash, right? And also, I need you to get into the mindset of raising. And so I force students to go and raise even if they have the money, right? Just to get used to it. It's funny, like, so I have a closing today in 3 hours from now. One of my students, she has the money to do the deal, but she was the one of them who I was like, no, go raise. And she actually took me on. She was like, okay, Hone, I got a private money lender. What do I do now? He said yes. What paperwork do I
Yeah.
need? What do I like? No idea. Ignorance on fire. I love it. I love it. Right? Most people are like, they need to make sure they have all of the paperwork in order and everything else before they have any conversations. This person just was like, okay, Home said do this. I did it. She went out. She's like, I found a lender, 100% financing. Like, crazy. It's like awesome, right? And I tell people to do that because when you borrow the money when you don't need it, it comes easy, so that when you do need it later, because you have a track record of borrowing this person's money, they will lend it to you again. As long as you've like borrowed it and paid them back on time the way you said you would, they have no problem. Like right now, I can call my private lenders and be like, "Yo, I got this deal, so and so, you win." They're like, "Yeah, here you go. How much do you need? When do you need it? Whatever." Right? And I don't have to tell them anything. I don't have to tell them an address. I don't have to tell them a value. I don't have to tell them like anything. They know nothing about the deal. They just know Hone is investing in X. Hone asked if I would be interested in being a part of X. I would like to be a part of X. Win, right? That's it. So, in terms of raising money, the most important thing, the most important way of being, right, is this thing. So, I'm gonna relate it. So, I'm from Philly, right? And Philly, we have the infamous Philly cheesesteak. When you order a Philly cheesesteak, the way you order is by you say the kind of cheese that you want, and then you tell them with or without onions, and that's it. That's it, right? And so you might walk up to the window and you will say like whiz, which means cheese whiz. So you say whiz wit. Whiz wit means I would like a cheesesteak with cheese whiz with onions, right? So all you got to do is say two words, whiz wit. Or you say whiz without, right? Without just means without onions. So With or without is the part I want you guys to focus on. With or without onions, right? But in this context, when it comes to a private money lender, with or without, I want you guys to remember this, because what I need you to do is come from a standpoint that I am doing this deal with or without you, right? With or without your money, I'm going to do this deal, but I'm giving you, person with money, the opportunity to invest in my deal. Okay, I'm doing it with or without you. When you come from that with or without like stance, all of a sudden you're very attractive, right?
Yeah.
You're not this needy person who's like, please, please give me some money. I'm trying to do this deal. And without you, I don't know if I can make it, right? That is not attractive. The attractive person is like, oh, he's up to something big. Colin's like, with or without you, I'm buying this mobile home park. It is a slamming deal. And I just wanted to give you the first opportunity because we have a good relationship. With or without you, right? And then you like start backing up. Yeah, with or without, right? That's how, if you come to a scenario like that, the likelihood of getting the money is way higher. I'm not saying you will get the money every time, but the likelihood is higher. So for those who do not have the money yet, pretend like that doesn't even matter. You're doing this deal with or without,
Yeah.
right? With or without, you come into the scenario and then they say yes or no, and then you move on to the next person. If you need more money, if they say yes and you need more money, you got to go talk to the next person. They say no, you still got to talk to the next person, whatever, with or without. And then here's the thing: if you got 10 people that you potentially want to talk to all of them. Regardless of whether you raised all of the money or not, typically you want to like talk to enough people where you raise 200% of the money and then let people down. Here's what's cool: the people who want to invest the most are the people who got denied the opportunity to invest, even though they said yes. It's like, I know you said yes, but I'm sorry. 5 people said yes before you. I got you on the next one. They're like, come on, right? Now, all of a sudden, with or without, shit, you are really doing it without me. I want in. How do I get in? Actually, that's how Bernie Madoff got away with what he did. A lot of people would come to him and be like, hey, I got $5 million. He goes, sorry, we're closed. Even though he's doing this whole Ponzi scheme thing, right? He'd be like, no, sorry. And then they'd be like, oh, come on. And then they get all their friends to like try to like vouch for them. And he'd be like, no. Eventually he'd come back and be like, hey, don't tell anybody this, but I got this one spot. All right. But you need to put in 10 million. No problem. And then sucker got him, right? Now, real estate investors, we're always people of integrity, and we would never do that to you. That is Bernie Madoff and Ponzi scheme. Um, for us, we do it ethically with morals and all that kind of stuff. We do not mess with people's money. When it comes to an investment property, we are buying this investment property. We're doing truthfully, with or without you, right? With or without you. But when we do it with you, it's going to be a win-win. And when we pay you back, you're going to want to be a part of the next one. And we want you to be a part of the next one because we are just up to bigger and better next time. But that is kind of how you raise money. So some people think you got to have a whole pitch deck and Reg D 506B or C filed and all of that. Like, no, not necessarily. You can start having conversations with people now and just kind of have a Rolodex in your head of like who is potentially willing and able to invest. There's a lot of people who are willing, but a lot of people are not able.
Yeah.
When it comes to raising private money, you want to raise from people who actually have money and not like, okay, I have $5,000. It's like, dude, I can't even buy a bathroom with $5,000, right? I need somebody who has 50,000, 100,000, 300,000, whatever, right? It's like, so you got to find people who are willing and able, who have that money. And then now you as the investor, the other thing you want to learn about is where their money can come from, because a lot of times when you ask people for money to invest in your property, they assume that they have to have the cash on hand, and that's not true. You can raise from people who have money in the retirement account. It's stuck in their house. They have it in a life insurance policy. They have it in some other source. So sometimes you have to educate your investors on how to be an investor. Right? How you can invest in my deal is by leveraging a HELOC. How you can invest in my deal is by leveraging the cash value portion of your whole life insurance policy or your IUL life insurance policy or whatever, right? There's a cash value. You can leverage that. Maybe you have a retirement account at an old job. We can roll that over and make it a self-directed IRA. And through that self-directed IRA, you can lend me the money. Maybe you have a 401k at your job now. Well, did you know you can borrow 50,000 or 50%, whichever one is less? You can borrow that and lend that to me, right? We can tap into your house equity by getting a HELOC. And so you can lend me the HELOC and I'll pay you an interest rate higher than what you're paying on that HELOC. So there's many ways that people can become your investor. They don't have to just be a cash investor. They can tap into all of the other sources of money that they have. So educating your investors on how to be an investor, and then also you being confident enough that you can do the deal with or without them. Yeah, so private money lenders, they're out there. There's more money than good operators, right? And so if you can demonstrate that you're a good operator, then all of a sudden the money that's out there will want to go to you. There's a lot more money than there is good operators. So the
Yeah.
few good operators win. They win it all. They win it in like a very unbalanced way. Like that's why like the 1% have all the money and the 99% don't or whatever. That's like people say it's like how is this so unbalanced? It's just because that's the law of how it works, right? Like money just goes to where it's treated best, if you will. Like the operators, the 1%.
All right. So from that first property till now, you've obviously done quite a bit, and you've created lots of businesses and bought a lot more properties and stuff. But we're interested in what you are doing right now, and how can that help the people that are listening?
So I got into the I want to say like education side of things early on by mistake. So I was investing in my own portfolio and building it up. And then out of nowhere, I just started posting it on social media. This is early on before anybody else was really doing it. And I was posting like what I was doing on social media in terms of like, oh, I bought another property. Oh, look at my rehab. Look at this, look at that. And so people would reach out to me and be like, Hone, can you show me how to do this? And like I would like do informal things of like I'll run a Zoom or I'll do a call or whatever, and I'll show people how to do stuff. And just more and more people just kept coming to me, and so eventually I made it more formal, and now I teach people how to also invest. And what's cool is I do deals with my students. I make my students do more deals than they would have done on their own. Sometimes the students borrow money from me. Sometimes they lend money to me. Sometimes I sell them deals. Sometimes they sell me deals. Like it's so cool that we get to work together. And then for 2024, so like we're in GoBundance together, and GoBundance has this thing called a one sheet, and on the top of the one sheet is the theme, right? And so there's this theme of the year, and so for my theme of 2024, which is the year we're recording this, it was royalty, and then now it's royalty plus partnerships. So what that means is everything that I do, I want it to create a royalty. So I'm just building businesses, online businesses around the real estate education space where it's going to produce a royalty where I'm going to get this passive income or this constant stream of money where it's not a transaction or a commission where like a real estate agent they sell a house and then that's it. It's done. That work that they put in is no longer there. Everything that I want to do, I want it to have a lasting effect. I want it to pay me years later. Right. So everything that I'm doing, I want to make it so that it pays me years later. Also, I want to do it with other people. So I was always the front man within my own business, right? Hey, welcome to the Hoan Zone where we're helping you multiply the assets you own, right? I'm the front guy. But now what I'm doing is because I was the front guy in my own business and I had to build the back end of my own business, right? And I was doing everything and I know how to do all of that kind of stuff. I have this unique skill set to where I can help other investors who are trying to become more of like a creator where they want to also offer education where I can help build out the back end of their businesses. So let's say you guys wanted to create a real estate education business. You guys are on the front end, but you guys may not know how different things work. You may not know how to build out a community. You may not know how to host your courses. You may not know how to create flyers or whatever, right? So you guys continue to do what you do. You go buy your mobile home parks and all that kind of stuff. You post it on social media, let everybody know what you're doing. In the back end, I would create the whole infrastructure for when somebody's interested in working with you guys, they come into our funnel and then they get processed, if you will, to be in the community. And then once they're in the community, I will help nurture the conversations. And so what happens is together, we make a really cool business where you guys are on the front, you're the brand, you're the face, and then on the back end I'm helping you guys build out what you guys don't have time to do. You guys don't have the time and you guys don't have the expertise, so I do that part. And not only do I do that part from a technical aspect, but I get to nurture it because I know real estate, right? I can answer questions about taxes. I can answer questions about financing. I can answer all of these questions. Whereas, like, somebody might initially say, Hone, I can hire a VA from the Philippines, right? Your audience. I can hire a VA from the Philippines, but the thing is that that VA from the Philippines may not have the technical aspect from the real estate side, from the investment side, from the finance side. They can't help with, like, strategizing how the student can buy their next property. That's where I have that unique kind of fit, where I have the technical in terms of the software, but then I also have the technical in terms of the real estate. And so I can nurture the community while you guys continue to sell yourselves. So I am partnering with a bunch of other investors who already have a following, already have a niche, who are already great at their craft. They just need help with the integration of it all, right? So I'm like an executive and integrator, if you will. And I'm building out these partnerships with all of these people that I hand select, and we build something great together.
Yeah, we might need your services at some point.
Yeah, Colin, if if that's something, like, look, you guys are building something great, and you guys got to continue to do this, right? You guys are nurses. You guys are doing this podcast. After that, you're spent. You got a family to deal with. You got kids. You got all that stuff. It's not. You don't have time to do all the other stuff. And, like, the title of the book, right? Dan Sullivan, Who, Not How. A lot of times people are like, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And how do I do that? Maybe you don't. You just find someone who can, and they do it. And not only can they do it, they can do it better than you. I find, and this cracked me up. So I was on like a sales call. Somebody was interested in becoming one of my students, right? They're really smart people, and that was their detriment. They're so smart that they thought that they needed to do every single bit, including, get this, including the demolition of the property. So they rented a U-Haul truck. This guy who's 130 pounds and his girlfriend who's 110 pounds, those two were like, we need to control everything. And they did the demolition. Little sledgehammer, like, okay, we're gonna bust down the wall, right? And they got the dirt and they shoveled it into the U-Haul. And they said it took them a month. My crew would have banged that out in 2 days. And I never got dirty. They, because so smart that they had to control every aspect of everything, decided that they even had to control the aspect of demolition.
Yeah.
So, who, not how, they needed that lesson. They did not have that lesson. Don't think you're the smartest person or the most capable of doing whatever. If in actuality, if you hire out, your job is to hire better than you,
Yeah.
right? Your job is to hire somebody who's better at this and has the time to do so, right? So find somebody who has the time, who has the expertise to do it. You guys go do what you do, and together the business is even better than if you did everything yourself. So why would you not? Why would you not hire out? I know why, because you're so smart that you miss out on that little detail. Like, some people are just too smart for their own good.
I get that a lot. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, you're smart and got nice hair.
Usually I hide it, but my headphones weren't working for those of you guys watching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
We're gonna pivot quick to our final five questions we ask everybody,
uh-oh.
except for some people who are go long-winded.
Plead the fifth.
All right. So number one is, what's a top financial resource that you found? Where do you go to educate yourself?
YouTube. I have a YouTube Pro or whatever, like the paid YouTube thing, and I just binge on YouTube day in and day out.
Number two is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Trust the process, right? Yeah, trust the process. Don't worry so much about how things are going to pan out, because they will pan out the way that they're supposed to, as long as you do things with integrity, with morals, with good ethics. Like, don't worry about how financially things will turn out, because your life will turn out well.
All right. What excites you about the next 12 months?
The fact that the AI tools are getting so good that I just recently read that in the next couple of years, somebody will build $1 billion solo business where there's just one person in the company, and they're going to build $1 billion company leveraging AI tools. So I'm excited. Even if I don't hit $1 billion, the fact that how crazy big of a business I can build with just leveraging the tools that are coming out, like, that's really cool.
What does that mean for, like, people who would typically work inside of a billion-dollar company?
That just means that they won't have a job, right? And then, so people who can be replaced by AI need to really focus on developing new skills and becoming multidimensional and being able to pivot and fit into a company with by adding value differently than they do today. A lot of things like a friend of mine who was a graphic artist, he said that a company would pay him $10,000 for 5 examples of, like, artwork for their potential upcoming project. He and I were playing on Midjourney, and within 1 second, it pumps out 4, different, like, pieces that are examples, and he said, "I used to get paid $10,000 for that. Now this pumped it out in seconds for pennies." And so just think, like, that could be your job, whether you're a high-powered attorney or whatever, like, all of that is kind of, like, in danger, if you will.
Nurses are safe.
I think we got a few years before they come out with the robot nurses to replace us, so we should be okay. But
But when that happens, think about when that happens, though, like, everybody who thinks they're safe now, if they don't prepare for when that does happen, there's gonna be a huge scramble. Be a huge, huge scramble. Yeah, so nobody is safe. Let's put it this way. Nobody is safe, but it doesn't mean that people won't thrive.
right.
Nobody's safe, but everybody needs to pivot with the times and be aware that it's happening. To just go like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm insulated from that." Those are the people who get caught.
I'm a little off put by this whole AI push, but like, yeah, it's like it definitely is like this adapt or die situation, and
That's it. That's all it is. And and if you know it, if you know this, Colin, do what you're supposed to do. That's all.
yeah, I'm gonna make a bunker. That's exactly what I'm gonna do.
You could you could absolutely make a bunker.
I'm gonna have AI
You can
design it, and then I'm
absolutely
gonna go build it.
no, you're gonna have an AI robot build it.
That's right. So number 4 is if you were to tell people to do one thing right now, what would you tell them to do? Either like a financial piece of advice or education wise.
I would say to go um, join groups like paid groups or whatever, like masterminds and things like that with people who are doing what it is that you're interested in doing. I saw this video on Instagram today where this guy was holding a baby, and he said, "Guys," and he was standing in front of an audience. He says, "What do you think is going to happen when you guys all clap?" And they're like, "Oh, the baby's going to clap." And then it's like, "Okay, let's try it." And then they all clapped, and the baby, sure enough, was like, right. The baby wasn't prompted to do that, nor could you because the baby doesn't speak yet, but the baby clapped. That just goes to show you how powerful your environment is to your activities. So if you whoever is listening is interested in becoming an investor, get around investors. Like Josh and I are in GoBundance, and this is a paid mastermind where we pay 5 figures to be in a group to just hang out with each other. It's like why in the world would anybody spend so much money to hang out with each other? Because the other people in the group also spend 5 figures to be in that group, right? And so now you're surrounded by people who are up to big things because only people who are up to big things would be willing to spend that much money to be in that group. So spend money, be in groups, get around people who are doing what it is that you want, because that environment that you surround yourself with is probably going to be the most important thing when it comes to what actions you take. You can learn a lot of stuff by listening to YouTube and reading books and all that kind of stuff. But if you're still in the same environment, where you're surrounded by a whole bunch of nurses who are just focused on being the best nurse that they could be, then you becoming that like rogue real estate investor, that's going to be so much harder. But if you're in, but the 3 days you're at work, the other 4 days you're hanging out with the group, that's going to have that impact to make you take the action that you need in order to become that investor. So pay money, join groups. And the more money you pay, typically the higher quality. Not always, but typically. Like if you pay nothing, you're surrounded by anybody and everybody. As you start to pay more and more money, the quality of the group gets better because only certain people can be in that group of a certain caliber or whatever. So,
Number 5 is what is the biggest financial mistake you've ever made,
ooh, uh,
and what did you learn from it?
uh,
2 part.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Hone doesn't make mistakes is what we're just finding out right now.
Guys, it's either I win or I win a little less, right? I don't make
Hey,
nah.
there it is.
So I've only lost money on one deal, and it's because I looked at this property and it was a 4 unit and it was laid out terribly. The fourth unit, to access the fourth unit, you had to go through the one unit in order to get access to the other unit. So really, this 4 unit was really a 3 unit. And then so when I ended up selling it, I sold it as kind of like a 3 unit. So because that back unit was never occupied, it couldn't be occupied. It was terrible. The only person who could really ever want to occupy that fourth unit is the person in the front unit. So bad layout, bad feng shui, if you will, right? Just when you're looking at properties, come from a human aspect of like how people will use this space. Properties that I've bought, I've like demoed rooms and walls and everything just so that it would have a better flow. So if you can create a good quality end product, then you're good. If you're lazy and just like, oh, do whatever, they're renters, they don't care. No, they care. Everybody cares. Everybody cares. Don't treat this haphazardly. Like really put a lot of thought into the functionality of a place and take you far. So since then, I never like just blindly was like, "Oh, it's a 4 unit. It's cool. It'll sell as such." It's like, no, that was stupid. So stupid. So that was really the only deal, knock on wood, that I've lost money on so far. And I mean, it wasn't even a lot of money, so it was fine. But I could have made money, which is the point, right? Rule number one: don't lose money. Rule number two: don't forget rule number one. There you go. So yeah, yeah. So consider feng shui. Silly as that sounds. And same. So the businesses that I'm building now, where I'm helping other influencers, investors, creators, whatever, and building out the back end business part, right? I am mindful of the user experience as they go through it, right? I'm keeping that in mind. Same thing as my real estate. I'm thinking about how the users are experiencing their education, how they're experiencing networking and communicating and asking questions and all of that kind of stuff. And I keep trying to make it better and better and better. So even the software that I'm choosing to use, I picked because of how the user interface is super important. What that experience is. So yeah, just always think about your end customers, like what their experience is with you, and if it's a good one, you create a raving fan. And there was like a book of like that talked about like all you got to do is create 1,000 raving fans, and you got 1,000 raving fans, you're good for life, right? Because that raving fan will not only buy your hardcover book, they'll buy your ebook, they'll buy your audiobook, they'll go to your tour, they'll pay for your coaching program, and they'll be a limited partner and invest in your mobile home park, right? And so treat people really well, have their user experience really dialed in, and voila, you have a raving fan, and together you guys can do a lot of business.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
They wanna become a raving
If they want to
fan. Where do
become a
they
Oh,
raving
go?
here it
fan,
is.
they can email me
Oh, that's
Oh,
hone
fancy.
at honezone.com, or I mean, I guess they can like check out my YouTube channel, right? My YouTube channel is Hoan Zone if they'd like. They they can go to my website honezone.com. So anything Hoan Zone related as of right now, they can do that.
if you're not on
Yeah.
YouTube,
Nobody's ever done this before. Yeah.
What was the saying? Stay ready, so you ain't got to get ready.
you're missing the scrolling font on the top of home screen if you're not on YouTube.
Yeah, go check out on
Yeah.
YouTube
Yeah.
and subscribe. Not since you guys made it all the way through this episode, give us a 5-star rating, subscribe our YouTube channel, and go see what Hone Zone is.
Yeah, come see what Hoan Zone is. Hoan doesn't even know what Hoan Zone
Oh, we're trying to get to 50 5-star ratings. So yeah, if you're listening and you haven't done that yet, go help us
is.
out and
Guys, if
subscribe.
you leave a 5-star rating and then email the screenshot of you leaving a 5-star rating, Josh and Colin said that they will do a personal one-on-one mentoringship with you. So if you're listening, they'll they'll do that.
Done.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Done. See, um, you guys didn't ask the question, but something that has actually served me pretty well, and I think would be a good lesson for a lot of people, is to take your shot. just take your shot, even if you don't know if it's out there, available, whatever. You just got to like, hey, I got this opportunity and see if you like it. Case in point, I was like, guys, if you leave a 5-star review and take a screenshot and email it to Josh and Colin, they will do a one-on-one with you. You guys are like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do that. Right. It's like, that wasn't on the menu anywhere, but we ordered it anyway. Right. And it, like, when it comes to private money lending, you don't even have a deal yet. Take your shot. Talking to your boss one day, you guys went to coffee or whatever. You're like, hey, by the way, I might be doing a real estate deal in the future. I just want to see, have you ever invested in real estate? Would you be interested in investing in this deal if I got it in the future? Your boss may say, yeah, just take your shot. Guys, it costs nothing to take the shot. I take shots all day, every day, left to right, all everywhere. Things that I'm not even qualified to shoot for yet. I take the shot, I get the yes, and then I figure it out. It's so cool what your life will look like when you take all of these shots and you get all of these yeses and this path is paved for you. And it's just like, holy cow, how did I end up here? Oh, I know. I listened to this great podcast by Colin and Josh, who had this guest on there named Hoan, who told me to take a shot. And I did. And I just kept taking shots, whether I was qualified or not. And I kept getting yeses. And I just kept learning and developing my skills and adding more value. And now, because I've done so many of these kind of shots and have successfully executed on them, I have all of these skills. I have all of this value. And now all of these other people now want to hire me or partner with me. And that's why my life is the way it is now. All because of Colin and Josh. Thank you guys.
And now they have the most successful juice bar in Tucson.
There it is. I mean, hey, Tucson people like juice, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for sharing today and jumping on the podcast with us. This has been awesome. We'll have to get out and ski again soon. There's been no snow. I'm in Wisconsin right now, and there's no snow here, and it's like the end of February. So.
I'd much rather mountain bike. If you guys down for mountain biking, I'll do that. I don't like skiing.
I'm down.
It's not fun. Skiing's not
I
fun.
got one.
Yeah,
mountain biking's fun.
Let's do that. Bring the GoPro.
You got it.
See ya, man.